While I was dodging Taliban bullets in Afghanistan, Karen Whitmore stole my family's 200-acre ranch and texted me a photo of a bulldozer parked on my grandmother's grave. I came home to McMansions where my cattle used to graze. Karen stood there smirking, clipboard in hand. "Welcome home, soldier," she purred. "We improved your little property while you were playing war." Playing war? She just made the biggest mistake of her civilian life. My ranch sat on a federal military land grant from 1943. Karen hadn't just stolen property. She'd committed treason against a military family. Federal crime, life imprisonment. She thought she was picking on a helpless deployed soldier. Instead, she'd just declared war on the entire U.S. Army. What would you do if someone stole your family legacy while you served overseas? Drop a flag if you think Karen got what she deserved, because this story ends with federal agents at her door. My name is Sergeant First Class Rebecca Torres, and 3 months ago, I thought my biggest enemy was the Taliban. I was wrong. My real enemy was a 52-year-old soccer mom with a law degree and the moral compass of a used car salesman. The Broken Arrow Ranch, 200 acres of Texas Hill Country, had been Torres land since 1892. My great-grandfather, Manuel, earned it with Pacific Theater blood, built our legacy with callous hands and government promises. When my grandmother, Elena, passed in 2018, she made me swear on her deathbed, "Mija, never let strangers take what's ours." I deployed to Afghanistan 3 weeks later, leaving the ranch with Walt Kowalski, my 89-year-old neighbor. Walt was Korean War solid, the kind of man who'd rather cut off his own hand than break a promise. He'd been watching our cattle since before I was born. "Don't you worry, Becca," he said, gripping my shoulder with hands still strong from decades of ranch work. "This place will be exactly like you left it." That's when Karen Whitmore slithered into Wildflower Estates, the luxury subdivision next door. Picture every HOA horror story you've ever heard. Then add a freshly divorced real estate lawyer with abandonment issues and a white Range Rover that cost more than most people's houses. Within her first week, Karen called the county about agricultural odors from my cattle. Week 2 brought noise complaints about roosters crowing at dawn, roosters that had been crowing on that land for 30 years. By month 3, she was hosting concerned neighbor meetings in her living room that smelled like vanilla candles and desperation. "That ranch is destroying our property values," she told anyone who'd listen, gesturing with her manicured nails like a general planning an invasion. "Something needs to be done about the Torres situation." The Torres situation. Like my family was a problem to be solved. While I was dodging mortars in Kandahar, Karen was mining county records like she was searching for oil. She found a 1970s covenant requiring residential conformity legal language so vague it could mean anything she wanted it to mean. Restrictive covenants can be weaponized decades after they're written if someone knows how to file the right paperwork. Always check what ancient legal documents might be attached to your property. Karen immediately incorporated the Wildflower Estates Community Association, named herself president, and began foreclosure proceedings against my non-conforming agricultural use. Her lawyer sent the required notices to my ranch address, where nobody lived except cattle and Walt's failing eyesight. Poor Walt found stacks of certified letters, but couldn't read the fine print at 89 with arthritis. Legal documents looked like hieroglyphics. He figured they were Medicare scams and filed them in his kitchen drawer next to expired Walmart coupons. Meanwhile, I was in a valley so remote that cell service was a myth and internet came through a satellite dish held together with duct tape and prayers. The sound of gunfire was constant, but not the kind that settles property disputes. 6 months later, Judge Harrison, who probably hadn't read past the case number, issued a default judgment. $47,000 in community improvement fees plus Karen's legal costs. The ranch would be auctioned to recover community damages. The Service Members Civil Relief Act protects deployed military from legal proceedings, but you have to know it exists to invoke it. Military families should always notify courts of deployment status in writing. Karen's LLC won the auction with a $50,000 bid on $2.3 million worth of prime Texas real estate. By the time my boots touched American soil, she'd already started construction on Wildflower Estates, Phase 2 luxury, living where nature used to be. I came home to the sound of bulldozers eating my childhood. The smell of diesel exhaust where my grandmother's roses once bloomed. Construction crews wearing hard hats, crawling over land where my great-grandfather's hands first touched Texas soil. And Karen, standing in her air-conditioned trailer like a queen, surveying her conquered territory, actually waved at me. I stormed into that construction trailer like I was clearing a Taliban compound, still wearing my desert boots and 3 years of barely controlled rage. Karen looked up from her MacBook with the kind of fake surprise that screamed guilty conscience. "Oh, Rebecca, you're back early." She purred like I was interrupting her book club instead of finding my family's legacy being strip-mined for profit. "I was just finalizing the landscape plans for your old property." My old property. The audacity hit me like incoming mortar fire. The stack of papers she handed me was thick as a phone book. Legal documents, permits, architectural drawings for Wildflower Estates Phase 2, executive living. My family cemetery was marked as community garden space. My great-grandfather's barn, built with his own hands after surviving Guadalcanal, was labeled demolished for safety compliance. Karen's smile could have frozen hell. "Everything's perfectly legal, sweetie. Your neighbor Walt received all the proper notices. We even have his signature on the acceptance forms." Walt's signature? My blood turned arctic. I drove to the county courthouse, that limestone building reeking of old paper and bureaucratic defeat. Dolores Martinez, the county clerk, had been waiting for me like a guardian angel with 20 years of experience spotting legal fraud. "Honey, this whole thing stinks worse than roadkill in August," she said, spreading out the files. "Karen filed HOA incorporation papers exactly 1 week after your deployment orders were published in the base newsletter. She was hunting you." I remembered my JAG training. Foreclosure notices must be properly served, and deliberately avoiding service is federal fraud. But something else nagged at me. "Dolores, Karen mentioned Walt signed acceptance forms. Can you check?" Her fingers flew across the keyboard. "Here we go." Walt Kowalski's signature on HOA membership acceptance dated 3 months ago. She squinted at the screen, then at me. "Rebecca Walt's been in the hospital with pneumonia for 4 months. I visit him every Sunday." The room spun. Karen hadn't just committed foreclosure fraud. She'd committed identity theft and document forgery against an 89-year-old Korean War veteran. "That signature is fake," I breathed. "Gets better," Dolores continued, pulling up more records. 3 other military families, same pattern, all had elderly caretakers who mysteriously signed HOA agreements while those caretakers were hospitalized or incapacitated. This wasn't random greed. This was a systematic criminal enterprise targeting military families and elderly veterans. Attorney Sarah Chun at Veterans Justice Project took my call immediately. When I explained the forged signatures, her response was swift. "We're not just talking civil fraud anymore. This is federal racketeering RICO violations. Prison time." I spent the afternoon documenting everything. Forged signatures, backdated permits, the timeline proving Karen's systematic stalking of military deployments. The smell of toner and courthouse coffee became the scent of building a federal case. Meanwhile, Karen was accelerating construction like she sensed incoming danger. Heavy machinery rumbled across my grandmother's flower garden, the hydraulic whine of excavators tearing through sacred ground, making my teeth ache. That evening in Walt's kitchen, I showed him the forged signature. His weathered hands trembled as he stared at the document. "That ain't my writing, Becca. Haven't been able to hold a pen steady since the stroke." His voice cracked with rage. "She used my sickness against your family." My phone buzzed. Unknown number in combat. That usually meant trouble. "Welcome home, soldier. Hope you're enjoying the improvements. Since you're back now, we'll need you to sign the easement paperwork for the new subdivision access road. Runs right through where your grandmother's house used to stand. By the way, Walt sends his regards from his hospital stay." The attached photo showed a bulldozer parked directly on my grandmother's grave, crushing the headstone that had stood for 30 years. But Karen had included something else. A photo of Walt's forged signature with a message. Amazing how cooperative elderly neighbors become with the right motivation. She was taunting me, confessing to crimes via text message like some Bond villain who couldn't resist gloating. I forwarded everything to Sarah Chun immediately. Her response came back in minutes. "Rebecca Karen just confessed to federal crimes in writing. Identity theft of a veteran, document forgery, elder abuse, and desecration of human remains. This isn't civil court anymore. This is federal prison territory." Within an hour, Chen had contacted the FBI's white-collar crime division. Within 2 hours, Federal investigators were requesting all of Karen's communications and financial records. Karen thought she was untouchable because she was picking on deployed soldiers and sick old men. But she just picked a fight with the entire federal government. The anonymous letters started that week. Neighbors received typed notes claiming I was mentally unstable and dangerous due to combat PTSD. The letters suggested I was planning to take revenge against innocent community members and recommended calling police if they saw suspicious military-style behavior. The whisper campaign was masterful. Suddenly, neighbors who'd known me since childhood crossed the street to avoid eye contact. Parents pulled their children inside when I walked past. The grocery store clerk asked if I needed professional help dealing with my situation. Karen was isolating me, turning my own community into weapons against me. But her masterstroke came on a Friday evening. I returned from meeting with federal investigators to find my trailer surrounded by police cars, red and blue lights strobing through the darkness like a war zone. Sheriff Deputy Collins, who'd gone to high school with my older brother, approached with his hand resting on his weapon. "Rebecca, we received reports that you've been making threats against neighborhood residents. Several witnesses claim you've been conducting surveillance of their homes and talking about revenge operations." My blood turned arctic. "That's complete, Collins, and you know it." "Ma'am, I need you to remain calm. We also received reports that you've been stockpiling weapons and military equipment in preparation for some kind of attack." Karen had orchestrated this perfectly. False police reports, fake witnesses, manufactured evidence designed to make me look like an unhinged veteran who'd snapped under pressure. The kind of story that would discredit everything I'd told federal investigators. "Deputy, I think you will find those reports came from the same person who's currently under federal investigation for racketeering," I said carefully, knowing every word was being recorded. But Karen had planned for that, too. As the deputies searched my trailer, finding nothing suspicious except my legally owned hunting rifle, she appeared at the edge of the crowd that had gathered to watch the show. "Officers, I'm so glad you're taking this seriously," she said loud enough for everyone to hear. "We've all been terrified. Poor Rebecca clearly needs help, not harassment from federal agents filling her head with conspiracy theories." The crowd murmured agreement. Karen had successfully painted herself as the concerned neighbor trying to help a troubled veteran, while I looked like the dangerous one surrounded by police. But Karen made one crucial mistake. In her performance for the crowd, she mentioned details about the federal investigation that hadn't been made public. Details only someone directly involved would know. Deputy Collins caught it, too. His eyes sharpened as he looked between Karen and me. After the crowd dispersed and the police left empty-handed, Collins lingered by my trailer. "Rebecca, off the record, I've known your family my whole life. Your grandmother helped raise half this town. This whole thing stinks like 3-day-old fish." He handed me his card. "Federal Agent Martinez left this for you. Said to call immediately. Something about Karen making another tactical error tonight." Karen thought she destroyed my credibility. Instead, she just handed federal prosecutors evidence of obstruction of justice and filing false police reports. Agent Martinez's voice cut through my rage like a blade. "Ms. Torres, Karen revealed classified investigation details during her police performance last night. She's been conducting surveillance on federal agents. That's a national security violation." But the real breakthrough came from an unexpected source. The investigation revealed Karen's true partner, Bradley Whitmore, her ex-husband and former Army JAG officer. Bradley hadn't just provided legal expertise. He'd weaponized his military training against the families he'd sworn to protect. Bradley has been inside our system the entire time, I realized. Every move we've made, every strategy we've planned, he's known about it through his classified access. Bradley had been using his security clearance to access military personnel databases nationwide. Every time a soldier deployed overseas, he identified vulnerable property situations and fed targets to Karen's network of associates. The scope was staggering. 17 military families across 8 states, $43 million in stolen property. Within 24 hours, Fort Hood transformed into a war room for what Colonel Mitchell called Operation Family Shield, a joint military federal task force designed to dismantle the largest military corruption network in Texas history. FBI agent Martinez led the federal side, while Colonel Mitchell coordinated military intelligence. Maps covered every wall, showing red pins where Bradley and Karen had struck. Bradley's been using JAG credentials to access military personnel databases nationwide, Agent Martinez explained. Every time a soldier deploys overseas, he identifies vulnerable property situations and feeds targets to Karen's network of associates. Staff Sergeant James Rodriguez, one of the other victims, worked in military intelligence and understood digital forensics. Bradley's been using Pentagon databases to research deployment schedules, family situations, even medical records of elderly caretakers, he explained. He knows exactly when soldiers will be unreachable and which families have valuable property. Bradley had turned military intelligence capabilities into a precision weapon against military families. Every database designed to protect us, he perverted to attack us. The final confrontation came at a Pentagon tribunal. General Patricia Hawkins presided over the hearing that would determine whether I was a traitor or Bradley was the real enemy. Bradley, in his dress uniform looking like the poster child for military honor, claimed I was working with foreign agents using property disputes to infiltrate military databases. This hearing will determine whether Sergeant Rebecca Torres and her associates have committed treason against the United States, General Hawkins announced, or whether former Colonel Bradley Whitmore has orchestrated the systematic exploitation of military families for personal profit. Bradley spoke first, his voice carrying the authoritative tone that had convinced judges and juries for 2 decades. General Hawkins, I've dedicated my life to serving military families through legal advocacy. When I discovered that foreign agents were using property disputes to infiltrate military databases, I felt duty-bound to investigate. His performance was masterful. The concerned patriot who'd stumbled onto a conspiracy. But when Agent Martinez presented the smoking gun Bradley's own recorded voice planning to murder military families, his story collapsed. The courtroom fell silent as Bradley's voice filled the room. Eliminate the Torres woman and the entire federal case collapses. Military families understand the risks of service. Bradley's face went ashen, but his lawyer immediately objected. That recording was illegally obtained through unconstitutional surveillance of an American citizen. But the evidence was overwhelming. Recorded conversations, financial records, digital forensics proving Bradley had accessed classified systems to harm military families. Furthermore, Martinez continued, if Colonel Whitmore was investigating foreign espionage, why didn't he report his concerns through proper military intelligence channels? Why did he instead coordinate with civilian criminals to steal property from the military families he claims to protect? She presented bank records showing millions of dollars flowing from Karen's shell companies directly into Bradley's accounts, payments made immediately after successful property foreclosures against deployed soldiers. General Hawkins called for order, her voice cutting through the chaos like a command sergeant major ending a barracks riot. Colonel Whitmore, you have 30 seconds to explain why this tribunal should believe your allegations when the evidence shows you personally profited from attacking military families during their deployment overseas. Bradley stood up, his uniform still perfect, but his face showing the desperation of a man watching his life's work crumble. General, he paused, looking around the room at the media cameras, the military officials, the families he'd destroyed. I invoke my right against self-incrimination. The silence was deafening. In military culture, refusing to answer direct questions from a superior officer was tantamount to confession. General Hawkins' voice carried the finality of a court-martial verdict. Colonel Bradley Whitmore, you are hereby stripped of rank and remanded to federal custody on charges of treason, racketeering, and conspiracy against military families. The United States Army apologizes to every family you betrayed while wearing our uniform. 6 months later, I stood on the front porch of the rebuilt Torres family ranch, watching sunrise paint the Texas hill country gold. The smell of fresh cedar and my grandmother's honeysuckle filled the morning air, but this time it was mixed with the sounds of children laughing and military families building something beautiful together. Walt Kowalski, despite being 89 and surviving kidnapping by federal criminals, was teaching a group of military kids how to hammer nails in my great-grandfather's reconstructed barn. The federal trials had delivered justice beyond our wildest expectations. Bradley received life imprisonment without parole for treason, the first military officer convicted of systematically targeting military families for foreign profit. Karen got 28 years for racketeering. Their entire network collapsed like a house of cards with corrupt officials across 8 states facing federal prison time. But the real victory was legislative. The Military Family Property Protection Act passed Congress 435-0, creating bulletproof federal oversight for any legal action targeting deployed service members. The ranch became the Military Family Heritage Center, supported by donations from veteran organizations nationwide. Our legal aid office had already protected 43 military families from predatory schemes. My phone rang while I was reviewing center operations. Sergeant Torres, this is Colonel Jennifer Hayes from Fort Carson, Colorado. We have an urgent situation involving a funeral home director who's been targeting Gold Star families. He waits until military spouses are buried, then forecloses on grieving widows while they're planning memorial services. I looked out at military families working together in my grandmother's garden, healing through service and community. The center had grown from personal tragedy into a national movement protecting military families from civilian predators. Colonel Hayes, send everything immediately. The Military Family Heritage Center doesn't just fight individual cases. We're building a national shield, protecting every military family from predators who mistake service for vulnerability. Walt appeared beside me, hammer still in his weathered hands. Another fight, Becca. Another fight, Walt. But this time, we're not fighting alone. Share your HOA nightmare story in the comments below. You might be our next case featured on HOA Stories. Subscribe to the HOA Stories channel and ring that notification bell if you want to see justice served to scammers who target our heroes. Together, we're proving that America never abandons those who serve.